It's freezing out there, like literally freezing. It is so cold, it's ridiculous. But I thought I'd take one for the team and come and do some sanding in the workshop. Andy's been working so hard on sanding the floorboards and stuff like that. I'm going to start sanding the old paint off the ceiling. Obviously at some point Ollie may need me, so we may switch and then this will be Andy, but currently it's me. But first of all, I need to go and get all the bits of wood and lay them out, so I know that I've got them all here in order, because when Andy took them down, he numbered them all, which was very handy. So to start with, I'm just working out what's what. So this is my port side pile, this is my starboard side of the mast pile, and I'm going to lay them all out. Andy sanded the backs of them and wrote the numbers that he wrote on the fronts on the back. So hopefully I can work out exactly where they went. Starboard, starboard, starboard. Starboard, port, starboard, starboard, port. What does AC mean? AC. Aft cabin. That is not for the saloon. That's in the aft cabin. Oh, in the crawl through. Yeah. So that's also the aft cabin. And what does SACP3? I'm assuming starboard, aft cabin, port 3. But how can it be both? So I don't know where that piece goes. Yeah. So these are all port. I'm going to work on the port side first. Some of them need a few little repairs, so I need to find the glue to do that. Right, so now time to work out Andy's ceiling giant jigsaw puzzle. I like jigsaws. No, that's a lie. I really don't. They're not my thing. Right, so port side 10, 11, 12, 15. Right, I am frozen, almost halfway there, maybe a third. I've sanded them. The idea was just to key them, ready to paint them, but then I started sanding them and saw how beautiful the teak was. So we are discussing maybe varnishing them. And because there's going to be a bit of white on the boat to break it up, we might restore these back to their original teak and have the ceiling as a teak ceiling rather than a white ceiling, because there's still lots of white fiberglass on the ceiling. But we're going to chat about that over dinner, I think.
So while Melissa gets on with sanding the slats for the deck head, the ceiling slats, I need to crack on and get these seat backs in place so that we can start doing the upholstery. The beds are now wider, so what I'm going to have to do is take a little piece out of the corner of the seat back so that they can move back slightly. Let me show you. Here's one I prepared earlier. See this corner here? I've just taken a slice out of that there. Now I don't think we're going to need to take that piece out of the mattress because it'll just push in slightly, but we could. I'll take a measurement just in case Melissa wants to do that. But I need to cut a piece off that the other side, make up the frameworks for the back of this, and then we can finalise where these seat backs are going to be. And then what I'm going to do is cut hatches in here similar to these ones, so that instead of them being top loading, they're front loading. You just pull the seat back and you can put stuff in from that way, because when you've got stuff up there, it's a pain in the bum, because inevitably people put things in coats and life jackets and all that kind of stuff up there, and then you have to unload it all to get that off. Whereas at least if you're going in from this way, all you've got to do is pull the cushion away and instant access. So that's what I'm doing now. Little job, but it's taking far longer than I was expecting it to. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that when we took the deck head slats down, one of our supporters, Katie, made a generous donation to help us buy some insulation to put behind the slats when we put them back up. Thanks so much, Katie. If you're curious as to how she made that contribution, you can go to www.coffee.com/sailingmelody to buy us a coffee. Of course, the other way to support us is through Patreon at patreon.com/sailingmelody. So thanks to these people who have helped us recently through coffee, and thanks to these incredible people who regularly support us through Patreon. We normally put this list right at the end of the video, but I'm mentioning it in the middle of today's episode just so our supporters get the credit they deserve. Thank you guys, we love you all. Now, on with some more boat work. There's half the ceiling done, the deck head. Really impressed with this stuff. I might have enough to do 2 layers, and it might just be enough space to get 2 layers of it in, because it's 10 mil and the space I've got is about 18 mil. So I might just be able to squeeze a bit more in, but I'm going to use what I've got to cover the whole area first and then see how much I've got left over. But it's going up very nicely. It's just got to do that side then. Something else I need to do though, while the tide's in, is get the dinghy off the foredeck, because I need to take it home, because I need the dinghy trailer to go and fetch the cockpit enclosure back from Andy's so that I can finish it off at the workshop where we're house sitting. So I need to get the dinghy off the foredeck, row it round to the slipway, tow it up, and then come back with the trailer to fetch it, so that I can then get the dinghy off, because I want to make a cradle for the dinghy to hold it on the foredeck, which I'm going to make in glass and foam, and then whilst I'm doing that I can use the dinghy trailer to go and fetch the cockpit enclosure back. I've just found a shackle on the foredeck. Do I look like a gnome with this stupid hat on? I've only got it on because it's cold. I found a shackle opened on the foredeck, which always worries me a bit, because I don't know where it's from, and it's too small to be from any of the big halyards or anything, but I need to find out where it's come from. I've got to put the bung in. It's better. Okay, that's cool. I can paddle that round to the slip now. I wouldn't normally put a life jacket on, if I've even got one here, for such a, I mean, it's like 50 yards, but it's freezing cold, like properly freezing. So hitting the water would be nasty. And I'm wearing this lovely jumper, which my friend Sharon knitted for me. How nice is that? Look at that. Bit of a fashion show. And it's taken her months, and it's wool, and I have a feeling that if I went in the water wearing this, I would plummet directly to the bottom. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. There's no way I'm swimming with this on. I've only just got back from the RNLI at Porthincline, where I was going to be volunteering, but because of the commitment involved and our plans to head off imminently. If anybody, by the way, is kind of doubting whether we're going to be heading off, well, I've just turned down a position on Porthincline lifeboat because we're heading off soon. But I know if Owain or Ken, hi guys, saw me moving a boat in freezing conditions wearing a big jumper without a life jacket on, I'd get shouted at. Some guys over there with a very swanky looking radio controlled boat, but they're in high vis and they look like official type workman type people. I'm wondering if they have got some a depth sound or an ultrasound or something on this radio controlled thing, and that they're scanning the bottom of the marina to see if it needs dredging. Interesting. It's like a mill pond here today. It's lovely. You know what, I'm going to take it out now because I've just noticed how quickly the tide's going out. I was going to go for a row, but the tide's actually going out quite quickly, and if I go down that way I'll be coming back against it, and also there'll be less water and a longer slip to pull this thing up. So I'm going to take the dinghy out now. So the dinghy is out and by the car, and like a complete tool, I forgot to bring the dinghy trailer. So the dinghy's sat there, and now I need to go back to the house to fetch the dinghy trailer. What a complete idiot. It's only 10 minutes, doesn't matter. On the subject of dinghies and tenders, people often ask us why we've got two. Basically it's just because they've got two different purposes. The Walker Bay that I was just rowing round, I'm going to take my hat off because I think I look stupid. The Walker Bay is a really well-known sailing tender. So it's polythene, sort of plastic construction. They're reputed to be indestructible, we'll see. And you can sail them, and we've got the sail kit. They have an inflatable tube around the edge, which was gone unfortunately before we bought it, which is why we've got the fenders all the way around the edge. But you can put a little outboard engine on. I think the maximum engine size that they can take is up to 6 horsepower. So that's why we've got the Walker Bay, which you can row and sail, and we've got the little Yamaha 5 horsepower engine. I want to get a really tiny one, because the idea with the Walker Bay is that it's just to kind of putt around on a calm day like this, or for sailing around anchorages. It means that if we've run out of petrol, we can row or sail in from an anchor further out. But we've also got the Avon which is a 3.1 metre, and we've got a 9.9 horse for that. So if we're a long way out from an anchorage and we want to all go in and we want to get in reasonably quick, we've got that one. We can blow it up, stick the 9.9 on, and it'll plane, and we can go exploring coastlines, we can go exploring coves, and it's bigger and safer. But for sort of daily use, I think we're going to be using the Walker Bay more. Weight wise, they're about the same. They're both about 28-30 kilos. I think the Walker Bay might be a fraction more, but you saw how easily I got it in the water. It's not difficult. And one person can pick the front up and wheel it up, pull it up the beach, because it's got a little dolly wheel. So we've got both. We may end up deciding that we use one more than the other, and that one's surplus to requirements. But so that's why Walker Bay, which you can row and sail, and we've got a little outboard engine, and the Avon 310 with a 9.9 four-stroke, which will plane, and that'll do 20 knots ish. So we can go in with all of us on board, all of us on that dinghy from further out. And the reason I'm taking the Walker Bay back to the workshop is because I want to build a cradle, and I want to build a clever cradle. Oh, this is this robot thing. Hang on, look at this. Look at that. Maritime robotics. Whoa. That's a serious thing, isn't it? I want one. I'm guessing it's surveying the bottom of the marina. Yeah, the reason I'm taking the Walker Bay back to the workshop is because I want to build a cradle before we leave. It won't take me long to do, to hold it on the foredeck, and I want to build it in such a way that it can live the right way up or upside down. So I'll build it with two little cups to hold the gunnels, so I can flip it over and stick it like a upside down, which will be handy in very hot weather, because we can put the dinghy over the forehatch like a clamshell, so that when the heavens open we can still leave the forepeak hatch open, and the dinghy will funnel air in but stop rain getting in. But then on passage we'll have it the right way up with a cover, a tarpaulin over it, a fitted cover, and in the dinghy will be buoyancy aids, grab bag, water, emergency supplies, handheld marine radio, VHF and that kind of thing, so that if we have a massive problem and we end up in the worst case scenario, I won't jinx it, we can let the life raft go, we can let the Walker Bay cut the strops and let that float away tethered, and we've got the inflatable as well. So we'd be in a situation where we'd have a sailing dinghy in the water with the life raft. I don't know if you think that's a crazy idea or not, but that's my idea. Finish off this bit of insulation in the ceiling, the deck head on the starboard side, because what I want to try and do is get those ceiling slats back up ASAP, and I also need to get over to Andy's to fetch the cockpit enclosure frame and roof, which is not quite finished but nearly finished. God, I love this jumper, thanks Sharon, but it's hot, so I'm going to have to take it off. And I've got to wear this underneath it because it's really itchy. Right, job done. The deck head of the boat is now insulated. There may be enough left over, because I've got another whole roll and a half roll, to do another layer. However, I want to do the aft cabin, I want to do the heads, I want to do the galley, I want to get everywhere else done first. And the way that we're doing the ceiling slats, I'm going to be putting them back up with crosshead screws instead of slotted. I'm sorry guys, I know a lot of the purists will go, oh no, don't, you must use slotted screws. Slotted screws are, in my eyes, the work of Satan. They're an absolute nightmare. They look very pretty, but you can't get them out when you need to get them out. They're just a nightmare to work with. So I'm going to be putting crosshead screws, which means I can zip, 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 zip. I can get them out easily, and if there's enough insulation left over, I can get the slats down and shove some more insulation in there in an hour. Similarly, I can get to the wiring more easily with crosshead screws, and the bolts for the sheet track. So the bolts for the sheet track come down here. I don't know if you can see the tips of them, but the bolts for the sheet track come through, and I haven't insulated over the top, which I'm aware is technically a cold bridge because it's a metal point going from the outside to the inside. The reason I'm not insulated over them is I might put some caps over them or something to provide some insulation, but I want to do a thorough test after all of this with a hose pipe and see if any of these are dripping, and if I've insulated over the top, I've penned myself into a corner, haven't I? So, right, insulation job, I'm ticking that off for now. If it becomes a problem down the line, we'll address it, but I don't think it will. The next thing I want to do is find the old tops for these shelves, which are now of course going to be shorter because we've moved the seat backs back. So I'm going to cut these down. I'm going to reuse the plywood because it's fine. We can sand it and paint it. It'll be absolutely fine. I'm going to cut those down, and then the seats will be, to all intents and purposes, done, and we can get on with the upholstery side of things and the prettying up, the trim and the varnish.
They're not being
49.
Can't be reliably placed in time.
Lovely. That's interesting because if you look, I've cut this much off the front end and this much off the back end, so we've gained 10 centimetres on the width of this bunk, and that 10 centimetres in old money, that's what's 10 centimetres in proper? 4 inches. 4 inches. Apparently that makes a big difference. I imagine it does. 2.2. 52.2. So on this side we've gained 6.5 centimetres. Slowly getting this boat back together, guys, and the reason we're getting it back together so quickly is because if you've made it this far into the episode, I'm going to tell you now, we are leaving in April. There's a bit of a teaser for you, a bit of an Easter egg. We are leaving here in April, but we're not announcing that on a thumbnail or a title until next week or the week after, or a couple of 3 weeks time. We'll time it and we'll do a big reveal, but you guys get to hear it first. If you've watched the episode and you've watched it all the way through, you get to know in advance. We're leaving in April and we'll do a big reveal in a couple of weeks. 44.5. Yeah, so any of our viewers who are like, oh, they're never going to actually go, they're never going to actually go off sailing. Well, as I say, I've turned down, what was that? Measure twice. Come on, Andy. I've turned down, I've had to turn down a position on the lifeboat here because I can't commit to the amount of time that it would take to do the training. Just double check that, 17.5 centimetres. Yeah, and because we're going, and if we were going to be staying here longer and messing around, I would have taken a place on the lifeboat team, but I haven't done. This way. Yeah, so these tops will now be screwed down because it's really irritating having these as top loaders, because people shove stuff, I was saying earlier, put life jackets and clothes and stuff on, and then if you want to get something from under there, it's a pain in the bum. So they're going to be screwed down and the access is going to be from behind this cushion. Do you know what? I know they're small, but you could still use them as a watch berth, you know. So we've massively increased the size of the seats and still managed to keep a watch berth which could be used if you really wanted to. That's so cool. Something else I want to make, we had the TV mounted on here on a swing out bracket. I'm going to put the TV on a clamp around the mast, I think, but what we really like is to have the floor empty so that Ollie can crawl around on the floor and just be a normal toddler. We're going to put a carpet down or a rug that doesn't slip about, and we'd like to not have a fixed table in the middle of the saloon. So my idea is to make a unit here that is mounted on the wall, which has got some storage at the back, and then a table that folds out like this, folds down with a leg, and then the other leaf of it folds out to make a bigger table. So you just go this half over and this half up. And that's my plan. I've got plenty of timber to do it with. I'm probably going to do it in marine ply or some decent quality plywood, antique trim. I've got plenty of stuff to do that. I can do it, it's just time. But if any of you are keen carpenters and fancy a little project and fancy helping us out, I'd be really grateful. Come and take some measurements or get some measurements and knock that up. But I'm not asking anyone to, I'm just thinking if anyone's like, oh yeah, that would be a nice little project to get involved in. But otherwise I'll just crack on with it myself. What do you think? Storage unit, perhaps to keep some wine bottles in there, and then it folds out and then folds over to make a table. And I've got the original tabletops, so we can probably cannibalise those to do it. And I just killed my bloody battery charger. This is my battery charger for my Stanley Fatmax batteries, the old style, not the new style. And I was emptying the dehumidifier into the sink because it was full. And I bloody poured water out. It just splashed and it went pfft. So that's the end of that. But it's not this type. This is the Fatmax V20. And irritating, I've got a charger for that. That's the Fatmax V20. They're slightly different. So my new battery charger for my disc sander won't charge my old batteries, but those batteries run the vacuum cleaner and my drill and my oscillating tool. So and I've just been looking on eBay and you can't get them. So I might have to either keep searching on eBay and Facebook Marketplace for one, or invest in some new tools. Bollocks. Anyway, this is now what the saloon looks like. There's the one seat, we've got the backs back on, that's all solid. And here's the other side. The floors look great. If you notice, I've just been walking around on the floors. I'm going to be sanding them back again and doing another coat of epoxy and then more varnish. But at the moment they're just solid and usable, and the gaps are so small that dust isn't getting down into the bilge, which is fantastic. So now what I've got to do is nip back to the house, fetch the trailer, get the dinghy back there, and get prepped to go and fetch the cockpit enclosure back here so we can get that finished off, and also finish off the deck head slats so we can start reinstalling them with the lights and speaker cables and things like that. We're back and the dinghy's here, look. So the dinghy's back on its trailer so I can make a cradle for it, and it's pitch dark, but what I'm going to now do is carry on sanding this lot. Earlier on Melissa was saying we're not sure whether we're going to varnish these, restore them, get all the paint off. We're not. We're going to repaint them for two reasons. One, we need to keep the saloon as light as possible. You may have noticed the port lights in Ocean Melody aren't huge, so we want to keep the saloon as light as we can. I'm going to paint these white, and then I'm going to floodlight them with some red LED strip, which will look really cool. You'll see when I get to do that. Secondly, they're in good condition, but they're not in spectacular condition. There's a few of them that have got little splits in, and if I varnish them, that's going to show up. Although it doesn't really bother me that too much. As I've said before with the floorboards, I quite like those war wounds. Anyway, for several reasons, we're going to repaint them. Another reason is the Epiphanes paint, the Epiphanes varnish requires 8+ coats, thinned, painted, put on in stages, and we don't have time for that, which sounds like a lame excuse, but if I paint them I can get them up fairly quickly. If I varnish them, it's going to be another week or two before they're ready to go up. So paint it is. But what we have discovered is if we decide in the future to sand the paint off, they come back up great. So again, it's not a safety thing, is it? It's a cosmetic thing. It doesn't matter. It'll just want it to look quite nice. So paint for now. So my plan was to take all of these to the boat and put them up in the deck head on the boat. And I could do, but I've come out this morning and they're not quite dry. I've used an acrylic paint for these. It's like a silk acrylic. They're not quite dry. They're dry on the tops, but of course where they've been sat, they're a little bit sort of drippy. So, and they could really do with another coat. So if I was to do another coat now, you know, I'm going to Andy's now to fetch the cockpit enclosure, as I said earlier. I'm going to leave them exactly where they are, and while I'm in Shrewsbury fetching the cockpit enclosure, Melissa's going to do another coat on them. So that will be the end of today's episode, I think. Huge amount done. The saloon is coming back together so quickly now, and I'm off now to Andy's to get the cockpit enclosure, bring it back here, and then I can finish it off here. So thank you very much for watching. As always, we'll see you next time. We've got a big announcement coming up, as I mentioned earlier, in a couple of weeks. Thanks to our patrons for supporting us. Thanks to you for watching. Thanks for your comments. Thanks for your likes. We'll see you next time. Bye.